is we're going to be covering the greatest teams to win a flag. So we're going to sort of do this to not win a flag. Oh, not a great start. So the greatest teams never to win a flag. So we'll do this in two ways. We'll talk about individual seasons, and then we'll also talk about teams over an era, maybe a combination of both. To kickstart us off,
we're mainly talking about like the beginning of this century.
This century, so we're not going back too far.
We're not going back before we existed. That's basically it.
So we'll keep it sort of 2000 onwards.
Yeah.
The first team I want to kickstart us off with, I'll just touch on this one. Essendon in 1999.
Yep.
Just want to touch on it. They were the best team all season.
Yep.
Carlton beat them in the prelim.
Yep.
In a game we had no right to win. So that was their season. I mentioned this on the podcast last time. Essendon fans at three-quarter time were on their way to grand final tickets. So that was their season. Couldn't get the job done. North win the flag.
Against Carlton in the grand final.
Against Carlton in the grand final.
So Essendon didn't make the grand final.
Didn't make the grand final. They go on to win 2000. But that's long in history. Do you want to take us away?
I think the first one is probably a very good one for me. I love this. I like what I see here. It's Geelong losing a grand final, brother. Geelong losing the 2008 grand final. Again, I think a lot like North or Carlton in that 99 prelim. Hawthorn had no business being in that grand final. I'm not going to lie to you.
Geelong were by far the best team that season.
Not only that, I think they were favourites by a country mile and a half. Geelong going into the grand final.
Full of kids in that grand.
Full of kids, full of, I don't want to say unfit players, but there was a couple of questionable players that are in there, like Stuart Dew and stuff. And he probably had the greatest 5 minutes of the grand final ever.
That's folklore.
Yeah, Geelong lost one game that season.
Yes.
And they were by far the most dominant team. They finished first. They'd won the Premiership the year before.
By 117 against Port Adelaide.
Poor Port that year. I remember watching that game. And they dominated everybody and everything that season, made it to the grand final and lost to Hawthorn.
They couldn't kick straight Geelong. They kept missing Cameron Mooney's famous miss from the goal square.
Yep.
Stuart
Dew's 5 minutes.
Matthew Egan, I think, from Geelong, one of the most talented footballers, injured himself in that game. Geelong went to water.
There was another player that injured himself, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't think he played a game after that. It was a highly touted defender, fullback, Trent Crode.
Oh, okay.
He was a high draft pick in the early 2000s. Everybody thought, hey, this guy's going to be the next 10, 15-year fullback. Anybody going to touch him? And he broke his leg or something happened to his leg. I remember he was on crutches after the game. And I think he played a AFL game after that, which is crazy to think because that Hawthorn team, like we said, had no business winning that game.
They had nothing.
And they won that game, and it was almost the start of like Hawthorn's revival.
It was. I think there was the Kennett's curse. Came out after that game. Jeff Kennett said Geelong will never beat us, and Geelong beat
and then they didn't lose.
Years after that.
So. Absolutely. So that was one of the first ones. The next one. You're gonna have a lot of fun bringing this up.
Collingwood in 2011. Now,
I mentioned this earlier.
You told me they only lost 3 games that year, and they lost only to Geelong.
Three games
to Geelong. And I think it was two during the season and 1 in a qualifying final.
No, the grand final.
The grand final, my bad. What happened? I think that's... What happened on grand final day? I did some YouTubing on that the last couple of weeks, but you tell us what happened.
From memory, what are we talking, like 14, 15 years ago?
No, take us back. Why did you guys lose?
We were all in my living room at my parents' house watching this game.
Okay.
And we were the most dominant team that year.
By far.
I think we finished with the highest percentage.
Ridiculous percentage.
In the AFL. Yep. We were like, it wasn't even like we were winning games. We were belting teams every single week. Yep. I think we had probably the most All-Australian selections in Collingwood history that year.
The Rat Pack was firing.
Basically. And we had Travis Cloak was the best forward in the game. Swan was the best midfielder. And it was just like stars across the board. Mick Malthouse had that team running like it was a V8 engine in its finest form. And in the grand final, it started off exactly how everybody expected it. Goal for goal, shootout. Travis Cloak was having the day of his life. The first half.
He was kicking goals. He wasn't missing.
2.5. Brother, he was kicking them from 60 meters.
He was on.
He was taking marks against people like just all over the joint. And I remember there was a turning point at that game.
Turning point.
And I think I mentioned it earlier anyway. Steele side bottom early in the third quarter or late in the third quarter kicked the goal. It was wet. It started raining at some point. He kicked like a ball that just kind of like dribbled and scrubbed across the line and it went in. And I think the margin was like less than a kick or something at that point. And then we went out like 3/4 time, came back 4th quarter. Don't ask me what happened. It's like Collingwood just disappeared off the ground.
And then Hawkins.
And Hawkins, that Hawkins goal will forever be the most haunting thing I've watched in footy.
So.
But I just remember him dropping a mark or the ball spilled and he just socketed it off the ground and it just dribbled across the...
I think that at that point Geelong fans knew it might be their day.
I think even Collingwood themselves knew that would be their day. So
they were, okay, Collingwood should have won. They should have gone back to back.
As great as we were that season, I think if we went back to back then, I think you would say that was a great dynasty team. Very sad that...
Just on that one, I know we've got to talk about other teams.
Yeah.
Malthouse, well, that was his last game. You've got in one sentence, should he have gone on to coach in 2012? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They shouldn't have brought Nathan Buckley in.
You should have held back.
Yep.
Moving on to another team. Freo in 2013.
Yes.
Did some research on this one as well. So in prior to that, I think it was in end of 2011 or end of 2012.
Yep.
Freo sacked Mark Harvey and they brought in Ross Lyon.
Yes,
radical change.
Yep.
This was all pre-planned and just sort of he just took his job. Let's be honest. Ross Lyon took Mark Harvey's job. There's no other way to put it. And they lost 5 games that year. They won 2 finals. They beat Geelong in a final.
Yep.
They were humming. There was
absolutely.
Ballantyne, Five, Pavlich, Stephen Hill.
Yep.
Players streets will never forget. And I took this off
absolutely.
a YouTube channel, so it's not my saying. But just some
absolutely.
absolute stars all over the ground.
Yep.
Luke McFarlane as well.
Yep.
And
I think Aaron
Sandilands was playing.
Yep.
In that grand final, Freo kicked 1 goal 6 in the first quarter. They kept missing from everywhere.
And if I'm not mistaken, and viewers, fact checkers, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian Lake had the game of his life.
He did. You're right. Bang. Spot on. He did.
I think he came to Hawthorn that year as well.
Yes, he did.
And he had the game of his life. He won the Norm Smith. He ended up winning the Norm Smith. He had the game of his life.
He did.
He shut down Pavlich. He shut down the Freo forwards.
He did.
He was a general. He was like...
He didn't lose many one-on-ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think along with their inaccuracy, again, no experience. I think that was Freo's second or third final series.
And it was their first grand final, I think, from memory.
Ever.
First grand final ever. So 100,000
David
people
Mundy,
at the MCG.
Chris Mayne.
Yes.
There was a bunch of legends that played in that team. Young Nat 5. And they...
When you're lining up a goal in front of 100,000 and making noise...
It kind of almost reminds me of Adelaide in 2017.
Yes, we will talk.
Richmond had no business beating.
Yes.
So, we will talk about Adelaide in a second. But Freo, first premiership, and it also started Hawthorn's three-peat during that time, winning that grand final. So, Freo losing that grand final was almost... And they finished
That was
third.
their season. I thought they played really well that season.
I did too.
And speaking of Adelaide in 2017, I thought they had a dominant year. I think
they finished first.
Yeah, minor premiership.
Yep.
Power stance on grand final day, well spoken about now.
Absolutely.
And then they went to water against Richmond. Similar fate too. Adelaide had their opportunities.
Yep.
Couldn't kick straight.
Yep.
And Richmond took their chances.
Not only that, the great Dustin Martin stood up that day.
Oh, the great Dustin Martin. How good was he?
And he said, this is my stage, this is my show, this is my game.
Oh, unbelievable.
And took control, honestly.
He's the greatest big game player, and I'll say this now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Greatest big game player in the history of the competition.
He's the only player that's won 3 Norm Smiths.
100%.
So if that doesn't tell you...
Not even just grand finals.
Oh, finals.
Semi-finals, big games, big moments.
Yep, 110%.
Arguably, in my opinion... Arguably the greatest footballer in the history of the competition. I'll stand on that
bold
one.
claim, but I agree with the greatest big game player ever. 110%. You don't win 3 Norm Smiths for fun.
You don't.
Adelaide lost that grand final, and they weren't seen in the finals again until I think this year. To be honest,
they had what do they have? They had that the camp, infamous Adelaide camp. Anyone who hasn't seen it, check it out.
Downhill for them from there.
They're back this year.
Yeah, so that was Adelaide's 2017 grand final. The next one, and probably the last one we'll talk about, in terms of individual seasons, was Richmond's 2018.
Yeah, they were. I'm sure you want to talk about this. They were the most dominant. They were most dominant team all season. I think they've only lost.
Here to talk shit about this.
They lost 4 games. They won their qualifying final, and then they played in a prelim.
They beat Hawthorn comfortably in that qualifying
final.
They did.
They were just so far. They were so much better than everyone else that entire season.
Yeah, and they came up against a Collingwood team in the prelim. more than a Collingwood team, a great American tower called Mason Cox.
The Texan
Tower, who it was almost like that Tom Hawkins moment I was talking about. It was like his coming of moment.
He was marking everything.
Brother, they just said, put it up in the air and I'll deal with the rest of it. Yeah, Richmond had a great season that year. They won the Premiership the year before. Everybody was like, everybody would have put their house that Richmond was going to go back to back that year. On the line for it.
I heard on radio not long ago. After he marked one of those goals.
He turned around.
He said to Trent Cotton, "This is my stadium, boy."
And I think there's a famous commentary from Bruce McAvaney that said, "We haven't heard a USA chant like this since 1956 in the Olympics." And that was just for the footy nuffies. Iconic where
moment.
The whole MCG was chanting USA. Because of Mason Cox's basically antics that night.
He kicked 3 goals?
He kicked 3 goals. Degoish had a great game that year. Yeah. That prelim. Sadly enough, we went on to lose that grand final.
Famous Dom Sheed moment.
Yeah, that's been entrenched in AFL history now in folklore. We want to move on to an era of teams that haven't won grand finals. So the first one of them,
the Sydney Swans, 2014 to 2024. Now these are some of your stats, so they're not. I'm just reading them off. Our script, not a script, but whatever. Some of our notes.
Yep.
In the 10 years, they've won 1 flag and they've lost the most grannies. So 7 grand finals for 2 wins.
Yep. This century, which is the worst return, by the way.
Yeah, horrible return. So.
Yep.
05, 06, 2012, 2014. I've absolutely butchered this.
06.
Anyways, the point is they've had their moments and they didn't take it. And they got belted in some of them.
So that's the thing. Like, you make grand finals, it means you're a great team.
Yes.
I'm not going to take away anything from that.
Yes.
Sydney have been a very good team for a very long time. But that return on investment, making 7 grand... That's a record. 7 grand finals in 25 or 4 years is almost a grand final every 3 years.
Yes.
Or 3 and a bit years, okay? If we're doing the math here. And they've gotten their asses handed to them in 3 or 4 of those.
Yes.
They got belted last year. They got belted against Geelong in 2022.
They got belted against Hawthorn.
They got belted in 2014, against Hawthorn. Yep, you're right. And the only 2 that they've respectably lost are the 2016 to the Doggies, which was a historic win for the Doggies, and the 2006 one to West Coast, which I almost don't even count that one because they won it the year before. Them and West Coast were the 2 great best teams.
At this slightly different era.
Yeah. They won one in 2012 with the same group almost that played in 2006. And I thought, okay, at that point, I said, you guys have made 3 grand finals.
Maybe they're going to rebuild.
Not bad. Yeah. And I think the team that went on for the last, let's say, decade from 2014 to 2024, it's almost the same cohort of players that have played in all those grand finals.
For the most part.
14, 16, 22.
A few retirees and a few younger players that come through. But
for the most part, the core group
stays the same.
So they've lost 4 grand finals in a row with the same group of players.
That hurts, yeah.
And I said last week, we were talking about our hot takes for the beginning of the season. I said both Sydney teams won't make it. And I said my reasoning behind Sydney was because every time they play well and they make a grand final, they get belted and they fall off. So them not winning a premiership in 10 years after making 4 grand finals.
It hurts.
Brother, like I said last week, I don't know how these players get up to wake up and go play in another grand final.
And the next team, to St. Kilda, 2008 to 2010. I just want to focus on the Saints.
You know why I'm laughing?
Why?
Because they won 1 premiership, St. Kilda. And we said last week they're a whole bunch of shit talkers before the beginning of every season. And now we're talking about a whole bunch of grand finals they could have potentially won, but they haven't.
They choked. Let's be honest, they choked. They choked in 2009. They were the most dominant team in the competition in 2009.
Yep.
Geelong had no right to beat them in that grand final.
They finished first.
They were head and shoulder. They belted everyone in 2009.
Yep.
And then
I remember that.
It was with the Matthew Scarlett toe poke, I think.
The infamous Scarlett toe poke tablet into the square.
Chapman
goal. Or Varco goal, something like that.
No, Chapman.
Was it Chapman?
Varco to Chapman goal.
Something like that. I remember there was 4 of them involved in that play. Again, another damn Geelong moment.
St. Kilda. They had their opportunities, especially that era. Even I didn't go back a little bit further. They played in the prelims.
Yep.
And then 2009, that was their year. 2010 as well. Draw grand final.
That's the closest they got to a premiership. They said, we'll come back next week to try again.
And then they got belted. The famous Heath Shaw smother.
He came behind him like a librarian. Yeah, absolutely.
And that was it. That moment you knew Collingwood were going to win and St. Kilda were done.
Again, we were watching that grand final together.
Yes.
At my place. And like you said, the moment Heath Shaw smothered that ball, I said, yeah, we're winning this
you're
premiership.
winning, yeah.
There's no way we're losing after something like this happens.
Just even the first game, the Stephen Milne bounce.
The Brendan Goddard mark.
Goddard mark, yes.
That was Lenny Hayes' bomb from outside 50.
And he bounces left instead of right. It's a goal.
Yeah.
Milne, the footy isn't supposed to do that. He isn't supposed to go right.
We know the Sharon has its own mind of its own. So, yeah, that St. Kilda era from 08 to 010, like, I think it's very disappointing that they didn't win anything during that time. And we'll quickly touch on the Bulldogs in that same era.
Yes.
Same shit.
They were played in prelims.
They played in 3 prelims in a row.
Yes.
Didn't make any of them. Again, Geelong, St. Kilda, Collingwood were the most dominant teams.
Yes.
Every time they played, they knocked them out. So, yeah, another disappointing team.
North as well in that period.
Yeah.
They featured in a lot of final series.
A couple of prelims. So, a couple of teams that could have potentially broken some history. The Doggies anyways went on to win another premiership in 2016. St. Kilda on the other
still shit.
Rubbish team, bro. But yeah, that's kind of our thoughts and our ideas around great teams that haven't won a premiership or
never won a flag.
A team during an era that could have won a flag but didn't. That brings us to an end. And thank you for tuning in. Take care. Ciao.